Hello and welcome to Unstructured Data Protection for Cyber Resiliency. Now, today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Rubrik with a special guest here with us from Microsoft and produced by Actual Tech Media. And today is going to be such an interesting discussion because we have three incredible experts who are here with us to help us take this deep dive into unstructured data and how your organization can build better resiliency in this unfortunately ever-growing, ever-evolving, ever-changing threat landscape. So this is going to be a very interesting and important conversation, and I cannot wait to get into all the best practices, the tips, the trends, the solutions, everything we're going to be exploring together today. So we're going to get through a few of the housekeeping ideas and get this discussion rolling. So let's start out with an introduction. Again, my name is Jess Steinbach, and I'm going to be your moderator here this morning. And as I said, very excited to be starting this Friday out with all of you. Now, let's take a look at your audience console together. I want to start by drawing your attention on over to the questions section of that console. Now, this is the best place to get involved, get interactive, and post all of your insightful and burning questions, those comments, feedback, and ideas. We absolutely want to hear from you, and I can tell you that our speakers are excited to take some of these questions along the way. So all the things that you ask are going to help inform the direction of the conversation. It's a little bit of a choose your own adventure for you this Friday morning. How cool is that? So basically, today is your chance to get all the answers that you have been looking for when it comes to NAS, to unstructured data, snapshot replication, disaster recovery, whatever it is on your mind, we want to hear. So post in that questions tab. So let's give that a test run right now. If you haven't already done so, head on over to that questions tab and start out by saying hi. Hello, it's Friday, so we can have a little fun here today. Tell us what you're excited about today or this weekend, but let's get those conversations going. Now, a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you do have any technical issues during our session today, knock on wood, of course. Now, don't forget that a browser refresh is going to get rid of any of the usual tech gremlins, but if not, if they are clinging on tight today, just shoot a message in that questions tab and the Actual Tech Media crew will be there to help you out. And the last thing I want to point out on your audience console is the handouts tab. Be sure to go check those out. There are so many cool resources in there for you today, some really incredible follow-ups to the conversation that we're going to be having. So you can grab that Zero Labs State of Data Security Report. You can sign up to attend a Forward World Tour event in partnership with Microsoft. You can get the NAS Cloud Direct Solution Brief, and you can sign up to meet with Rubrik and Microsoft. I mean, all of these options are incredible. There's lots more there, so be sure to check out that handouts tab. And hey, it is not just awesome content that we are giving away today. We also have a $250 Best Buy gift card as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar. Now, you do need to be here live and present with us at the webinar in order to qualify for that prize. All winners must also meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. And if you're not sure what those terms and conditions are, no problem. I do not expect you to have those memorized. Head on over to that handouts tab, click into it, scroll down, and you will find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. Now, not only does asking a question today help bring up the whole energy, the engagement, the flow, and the fun of our day today, it is also another awesome way to qualify for a prize. So today, we are offering a $50 Best Buy gift card to the best question asked. Now, we are going to review all of the questions asked today after we wrap. So even if your question does not get asked in our live Q&A, there is still a chance to win. So get those questions in. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for the housekeeping. We got through it nice and quickly there so we could get things rolling. I am so excited to introduce you all to Sharif A. Lewis, GTM Tech Lead, NAS Cloud Direct, Rubrik, Natasha Loeffler-Little, Principal Product Manager at Rubrik, and Saurabh Sharma, Senior Program Manager, Azure Storage at Microsoft. So many awesome people all here in one place. Let's get them out here with us. Folks, I am so excited to jump into our conversation today. Can't wait to get things rolling. So Natasha, I'm going to hand things on over to you. Take it away.
Thanks, Jess. What an energetic and warm welcome. And I want to keep that rolling by welcoming both Sharif and Saurabh. Good morning. And let's get this started. I am so excited. I have the privilege of working with both of you on a regular basis and super excited to talk about this topic because I know you're both incredibly passionate about it. And so where I actually want to start is giving our viewers your personal introduction and talking about your connection with unstructured data and why you're so passionate about it. Saurabh, how about you go first? You are our special guest. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Natasha, and thanks everybody at Actual Tech Media as well. Great to be on with Sharif and you. I am Saurabh Sen Sharma. I'm a senior product manager with the Azure Storage Engineering team, and I focus specifically on unstructured data related to backups and disaster recovery and archival. I've been in this space for more than 7 years now, and it's been great because not only has unstructured data exploded in that time, but that explosion is going to continue at insanity pace. Singularity pace is what I call it. And we're going to have about 175 zettabytes of data by 2025. That's a huge amount of data that is being generated. And I'm fortunate to be working on Azure, which is by far one of the most trustworthy and compliant platforms for unstructured data, and super fortunate to be working with Rubrik, which is a leader in the data security space, especially as it comes to unstructured and structured data. So super fortunate to be here, and great to be on. I'd pass it back to you, Natasha.
Great. Thank you. And as you can see, I mean, again, super passionate about this topic and a lot of opportunity for our listeners to continue to grow in their understanding of something that is growing at such a crazy pace. And Sharif, how about you? You have the privilege of spending your days with Rubrik and talking about cyber resilience a lot with unstructured data. So talk to us about what you do on the daily and what makes you so passionate about unstructured data.
Absolutely. Thanks, Natasha. I'm Sharif Luis. I am a go-to-market tech lead for the unstructured data solutions here at Rubrik. We focus primarily on protecting unstructured data, whether it's file and soon to be also object-based data. I have been working with unstructured data for over 12 years. I've worked with object storage vendors, multiple NAS vendors, very exposed to the technology. And the number one issue has been, how do I protect this data outside of doing just snap and replicate? And Rubrik does have that answer. 2 years ago, they acquired a company and has evolved that technology where we can solve problems, where we can protect billions of files in a single volume or a single share. Add ransomware investigation and sensitive data discovery to that data, and just this whole Rubrik DNA of making backups really simple in terms of management and deployment, and you just set it and forget it. So I've been with Rubrik for a bit less than a year now, and we've been on a really, really good ride so far. We have so many happy customers.
That's awesome. And what's so awesome about it to me is having you join Rubrik and come in, and together with Microsoft, we're solving some of those big problems that you guys have both outlined. And so with that, as we go into talking about this, I want to tee up a problem for folks with, why we're talking about cyber resiliency, and then specific to unstructured data loads, what are the real problems? So I'm going to have you guys talk about this a little bit more. Sharif, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Let me just...
There we go. And hopefully the slides are updating here. But as we're talking about the problem and, understanding that businesses really are under attack, right? And I'm going to let you talk about this.
Absolutely. Are you sharing the slides right now?
It should be, and if I'm...
Okay, yep.
And Jess can confirm for us if we are having any issues there on the tech side. I think we might be...
I can see you okay. You know what, if you possibly move things around on your screen, you may have to do that little reset and bring it back. It might be hiding.
I got it. Yeah. I got it. All right.
Live.
Okay. Right. Okay. So right now, the question when it comes to cyber attacks is not whether it's going to happen or not. It's has become of when will it happen, and what would a business, or what would I do as a decision maker if my data gets compromised by a cyber attack?
Excuse me. So, sorry, Sharif, there's a little bit of a delay. Did you have more to add?
No, so we can
Okay.
go to the next.
Yeah. So this idea that we can't just look at the perimeter anymore. We really have to start focusing very specifically on the data. And, this isn't unique to unstructured data or any kind of data, right? We really do have to talk about unstructured data, and we've started to clue into some of those pieces. Saurabh talked about the amount that's coming through. We've been talking about, there are specialists in this field like you, Sharif, who have looked at this problem through a very direct lens and started to identify that there are certain challenges that professionals who have to deal with unstructured data really have to take a look at. And so, Saurabh, I'd love to hear from you. We have some questions listed here. The spirit of it is, how are you able to handle sensitive data? What would you do if the data was lost? But what are some of the things that you've seen come up as really important questions or top of mind concerns for professionals and leaders when it comes to unstructured data?
Absolutely, and I can cover that. And I can go on and on about this. We speak to customers every day, and whenever I speak to CIOs or CISOs, what they really worry about is there is a lot of sprawl in terms of where this unstructured data is being generated. So it's generated everywhere, pretty much at the edge, in the cloud, in the data center, everywhere. And so there is a lot of sprawl in terms of where this data is. And with the compliance regulations around privacy, HIPAA, GDPR, there are a bunch of compliance regulations, again, in terms of how this data is handled, how this data is stored, how much customer data is there in it, and so on. So there is a lot of governance that customers need to perform with unstructured data. And on the top of that, you have this forcing function around ransomware and cybersecurity attacks, which, by the way, have not left any customer, untouched, to be honest. Every customer faces some kind of a cyber attack or the other. And the biggest concern that we hear CISOs and CIOs have is, how do we protect our absolutely valuable data that propels our business forward from these kind of cyber attacks, so that we can essentially have control on how we generate that data, operate that data, and essentially put that data to use. And so those are the most important considerations that we hear from customers day in, day out. And then there is also this aspect of transforming to adopt modern tools. And the biggest concern that IT folks have, or IT pros have, is, how do we adopt new platforms? How do we adopt the cloud? How do we make this data more available without essentially compromising on its security and the trust that customers place on this data? So those are the main challenges that we see with regards to the unstructured data space. And by the way, these challenges are not new. They have existed in the structured data space as well, which propel mission-critical apps and application. And now we are seeing this sort of come into unstructured data, because now the volume of expansion of unstructured data is surpassing the volume of creation of structured data. And it's happening right now. And that's why these are such important concerns that we need to address.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the volume and the sprawl. I think those are the two the pieces that make the questions here particularly unique, to your point, and the pain, and I would say the overwhelm of having to deal with that. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about. Sharif, do you have anything to add to that you're hearing top of mind for practitioners or leadership around unstructured data?
The general, I would say, question and concerns that people have is, okay, I have all these petabytes of data. I probably am deploying certain tools that can help me maybe detect if there is an attack, but it's too impactful on my production data. How can we help here? And at Rubrik, we figured that we have all the backups of your data. We know the patterns. We have helped customers recover from many ransomware investigation. We have a specialist team that can help with those recoveries and just understanding exactly what was compromised and how to recover it. So that's exactly what we decided to do. We'll just take that backup of your copy. We'll run our scanners on it. We'll see if there's any sensitive data that might violate a compliance that your business needs to meet. Has there been any suspicious activity in terms of a malicious attacker or encryption or changes of metadata and permissions and so on? And we definitely find that unstructured data is the biggest target for cyber criminals today. It's the first thing they almost go after.
Yeah, so that the intensity of the threat on top of the volume, on top of the complexity, like great recipe for us to be having a conversation about how can we help businesses become more resilient against these types of attacks. Now, that was great. Thank you. One of the things that I think is also important coming from the product management perspective that Saurav and I sit in within Rubrik and Microsoft is also thinking about you as the people who are sitting here listening. And the fact that when you're considering the transformation element that Saurav alluded to, when you're considering the complexity that is, I'm not going to say unruly, but there is this volume and sprawl, to then have to try and adopt technology and to try to encourage that adoption of that technology and governance across your organization, it's taking a pretty significant toll in the industry. When we look at the data, the psychological impact that is coming out, the burnout, the pressure from potentially losing revenue, from not having business back up online. These things in this human element are also incredibly important. And the three of us are going to talk about this a little bit more. But the one thing I'll add to the complexities that you were talking about is that on top of that, again, whether we talk about structured or unstructured data, anytime you're looking for something to implement, and as you embark on this or you look to optimize it, is you also have to start to think about that human element. So we're not here just talking about the zeros and the ones or specific technologies offered by Rubrik and Microsoft, but we also really want to share some insights about considerations for you and your team to make this come to fruition. Do either of you have anything to add to that? Maybe Saurav?
I think you said it brilliantly, Natasha. I think there's a human element to it, and there is this velocity and pace of innovation that we are seeing. And we absolutely need to find the customers the right platform, the right solutions, and to Shrif's point earlier, making it easy, right? And in terms of ensuring that their data protection, data security posture is a 100% visible, manageable, and controllable to ensure all threats can be fended off in a very effective manner. So I think you put it really well, Natasha.
I love that. Yeah, thanks. And I think this is actually a great starting point to talk about what a strong foundation looks like, right? And to do that, we need to start at a platform level conversation. And so, Saurav, I'd love to hand it back to you to talk about this Azure as a platform and some of the benefits, and not just the benefits, but really like what are the things that went into thinking about creating a world-class platform for unstructured data in particular, because from there we can build up and talk about how do we manage that complexity, the volume, the ease of use, the governance component that we've been talking about. This is the beginning of that, right?
Absolutely. And I think, I would start with the Microsoft mission of ensuring that every person in every organization on the planet has the right tools to achieve more and be more productive. And as we discussed, Natasha, I think the core concern that everybody has is to make sure their data, their mission critical applications are secure and compliant. And that comes essentially with Azure creating a platform that believes that those are the core sort of drivers of trust in the customer base. And absolutely, because our mission essentially extends at planet scale, it is not possible to do that without ensuring customers, wherever they are able to leverage the platform in a very easy manner. So, Azure essentially starts with having, physical data center security built into every single data center. And we have more than 200 data centers across 60 plus regions, maximum across any cloud provider. And so wherever you are, whether you are, in EMEA and APAC, in the US, or perhaps, in some of the remote locations as well, you should be able to leverage the Azure platform, very, very close to your operations without much latency. And that access is something that our customers love about the platform. That global cloud infrastructure also allows customers to choose custom hardware, custom storage, network protection, ensure that the data is not only secure at rest, but also in transit as it sort of transacts with this Azure platform as well. And then if I were to sort of talk about security is built, and Natasha, you were showing the initial slide where there were multiple layers of security. If you could go back to the previous one, there were multiple layers of security starting from the network perimeter all the way down to the data itself. And that same philosophy of operational security exists within Azure as well. And we layer that not only with more than 8,000 global security experts, but the Microsoft security platform, by the way, almost feels 65 trillion signals globally on a daily basis, just to make sure we have the right protection posture for customers on the platform. And not only that, we layer that with the highest number of industry compliance offerings that allows customers across industry verticals to adopt Azure and the Azure platform with peace of mind. If you go to the next slide, I would go a little deeper into the principles around security that has been built into the Azure platform. And so what we essentially based our security and compliance design on is what we call the zero trust architecture, which is essentially making sure that you verify explicitly, you limit the access to the least privilege, and finally you keep everything up to date in terms of security updates and patches. And this is something that customers have struggled with in the past in the data center, which is, how do I ensure I have the latest security updates? Well, Azure takes care of that for you. And in this diagram, which by the way talks about the internals of that, it is built into networking, into compute, into storage. So some of the core services of Azure. And then we layer that with a very strong identity framework, which is delivered by Azure Active Directory, offers multi-factor authentication, essentially RBAC, that allows you to govern the operations that you can perform with your critical data. And then this platform is available to amazing ISVs like Rubrik to be able to build extremely compelling solutions, but also for end customers to deploy their most mission critical applications and ensure there is availability, durability, and security for each of those applications as well. So that's essentially what goes into the Azure Zero Trust platform. Now, if you zoom in to storage, and if you go to the next slide, I would want to talk about Azure Blob Storage, which is Microsoft's massively scalable, secure object storage for unstructured data. And it's very interesting because, if you look at just the scale of unstructured data, we are talking exabytes, we're talking zettabytes in a couple of years from now. And you absolutely need a multi-exabyte platform that is both scalable and durable, but also available for you wherever you need it, whenever you need it. And so with every piece of data that lands up on blob storage, you minimally get 3 copies, which are erasure encoded. So you're never actually dependent on a single copy to be able to sort of, orchestrate your data access or your data disaster recovery or restores as such. You always have those 3 copies. And then we layer that again with the same security and compliance standards that I talked about in the previous slides. Immutability is built into the platform. You are able to sort of, set up retention policies and get very, very granular object level immutability on the Azure Blob platform. And of course, in the current macroeconomic climate, we do see customers consolidating and doing more with less. And we enable that by ensuring that blob storage is available in multiple types of cost-effective tiers. So we have, hot tier for essentially more performant, low latency workloads. We have cool tier that delivers, a much higher cost benefit. And of course, we have the archive tier, which definitely delivers long-term retention at scale at a very, very low cost, $1 a terabyte. And you can still lower that with what we call reserved instance pricing. So there are a lot of controls that are available to both our partners and customers to be able to get the best bang for their buck on the blob storage platform. And then if you scale to the right, this essentially scales towards comprehensive data management. What we mean by that is we are not talking about data that is sitting in one region or at the edge. It basically consolidates all of that data for you, allows you the tools to essentially ingest that data through migration, access that data through various protocols, and then ensure that all of these protocols across analytics use cases, across BCDR use cases or HPC use cases, you essentially have the same copy of data. You're not copying that data again, creating data silos and accessing it differently. You just upload it up into Blob and you have all these protocols working for you with that single copy of data. So that gives you that flexibility to reuse your data in various use cases without having to worry about the sprawl that I talked about earlier. And finally, we absolutely offer a differentiated premium blob storage offering, which is foundational for demanding workloads. Whether it's SAP, whether it's Epic hosted workloads, there are a bunch of workloads that leverage that scale and efficiency and performance, especially critical in the use case of restore. When you're restoring unstructured data as well, you want that performance back because you want that restore back quickly. And so these are the foundations of what essentially the Rubrik Security Cloud, the Rubrik platform around NAS CD is built on. And we're absolutely, fortunate of the partnership and thank Rubrik for essentially building on this platform and making it available to customers. And we also absolutely have to thank our customers for essentially giving us that continuous feedback, allowing us to sort of improve and tune, to their needs from the platform.
Thanks, Saurabh. And there's so many layers to this, right? I mean, I just have to first say we said that we were going to keep Jess's energy and enthusiasm going as we continue to talk about this. And what's clear, I mean, you started with it from the beginning, right? Microsoft has a mission to make sure organizations have the tools they need to get the job done. And you've just outlined some really incredibly deep, both concepts and technology, but all, again, it's exactly, you bookended this beautifully for me. I don't know if that was intentional, but starting with that mission and then ending with this customer obsession, the customers have actually informed this, right? And to create a foundation that gives organizations something that is considering the cost, something that is considering the comprehensiveness, right? And I think this goes to, we've had other webinars where we have extensively discussed the benefits of moving to the cloud. These are just some of the beginning, right? And this is infrastructure that organizations do not themselves then have to invest in, but can leverage the intel, the investment that has gone into looking at a really wide range of use cases, right? And I think that is incredible. And, I heard, and I think these are some of the things that the three of us, as we were preparing for this, really look at as important because of the complexity and the volume of unstructured data, in particular, that sprawl, is we have to look at solutions that when everybody who's listening here is going to either optimize or begin this journey, possibly, that you're looking at how are you going to be able to use this so that you can actually adopt it. What are you going to be doing? This is more of a segue into what Sharif is going to talk about next, but there's the strong foundation, and then we've got to start looking at how are you going to integrate that with the other layers where you need to augment that. And that is something where Rubrik comes in with data security in particular. And then also, I do also want to talk about the ease of just, if you are on that getting started path, looking for something where you can leverage the Azure Marketplace to make the procurement of this easy. Like we want to remove all the barriers that we can along the way. And those are just a few of the ones that I think are important for an organization, as well as for you as individual practitioners. Saurabh or Sharif, do you have anything to add there? All right.
No, I think you put it beautifully, Natasha. I think making it simple for customers to be able to use this, scale this, and then procure this, of course, I think it's top priority for our customers. And I think Rubrik integrates extremely well, as we'll see. And so I'll give it back to Sharif.
Okay, great. Yeah, and Sharif, I'd love for you to talk about how Rubrik looks at this in terms of the three pillars of resilience, observability, and remediation, built also on a zero trust design platform.
Right. We are definitely leveraging the main pillars of Rubrik within all our platforms or our products. And being able to be resilient is the kind of the heart of what we do, in terms of being able to easily protect your data, being able to easily restore it if you need to in terms of data mediation. And then it's the data observability, which is, what do I have protected? Has my data been compromised? Because it goes back to backups are not cyber recovery. And because it's just, what am I recovering? Has this data been touched? Is it safe? And this is exactly the third pillar that we satisfy here.
Great. And then there are some specific things that we should dive into, because we do want to make sure we leave time for the demo and questions that I want to talk about with respect to the architecture. So like you said, we've got this broad sweeping 3 pillars that Rubrik looks at. And if we take this evolution that we're discussing here, strong platform with a lot of flexibility, having then the ability to dive specifically into data resiliency, having 3 things in mind from, as the data itself resilient, do I have a way to actually observe what's happening and detect things that are occurring possibly that could put me at risk? And then do I have a way to actually get that back online and then keep the loop going? And with unstructured data in particular, Sharif, I'd love for you to go through the flow of how we think about the architecture, how we set the architecture up, and then we can share some insights with the listeners about how that flows into some of these suggestions and key problems we know that they're facing.
Absolutely. So the NAS Cloud Direct is our product that protects unstructured data today. It's 100% a SaaS offering. The majority of the operations and processes run in the Rubrik Security Cloud. So whenever we onboard a customer, we do create an isolated tenant, and this is where we keep the index database, and this is where the job coordinators, policy management, and anything that is involved with backing up your unstructured data is involved. The only piece that gets deployed in your infrastructure is a stateless VM. That stateless VM runs the binaries, that does the scanning, indexing, and movement of data. That can be deployed on any hypervisor in your own data center, or can be deployed as an Azure VM. And by that, we also can protect the Azure file services. We also have API integration with the most common NAS technologies out there, like Isilon from Dell, NetApp, Pure Storage, and Cumulo. On top of that, today we protect any NFS or SMB-based storage. And we can write to any tier within Azure Blob directly, that being hot, cool, or archive. And it's all dependent on what your retention period is and what your SLA to recovery is. So we try to be as vendor agnostic on the source as possible, and also be able to have the flexibility to use any Azure tier that matches your SLAs and business requirements. And on top of that as well, Rubrik has its own cloud storage offering that's actually based on Azure Blob. It's called Rubrik Cloud Vault. And what the benefit that customers get out of this, that this is a managed cloud storage by Rubrik, and it's logically air gapped. So this gives this additional layer of security.
Great. And I'm going to have you keep going. We do have a question here that I think might, let me come back here just a moment before we go into that, that I think might be interesting to talk about as well, Sharif, is, can you talk about efficiently protecting large amounts of pre-compressed unstructured data like medical images? I think it's a great question.
Absolutely. Yeah. Healthcare is actually one of our biggest verticals. We've had a lot of success protecting Epic Blob and any radiology images in general. Again, unstructured data is just usually grows infinitely. And we have the scanners and the ability to scan through hundreds of millions and billions of files within hours. Be it compressed or uncompressed, we will be able to efficiently scan it, move it, and write it to the cloud storage target of of your choice, whether it be it again hot, cool, or archive. Again, the efficiency here comes in more of how we do things. So, and this, we talk about this in the next slide. What actually makes NAS Cloud Direct stand out when we come to saying NAS protection, an efficient NAS protection. Historically, people have been relying on technologies like NDMP that kind of are maybe suitable for 10, 20 terabytes of data. Once you start getting into the petabyte range and billions of files, it just does not keep up. And what we guarantee here, so what we built here with NAS Cloud Direct, we built a very lightweight SMB and NFS client that is latency sensitive. So it measures the latency on the source data, source NAS, as we are scanning and moving the data. This way, we make sure we don't impact any production workloads, any user workloads, and at the same time being able to efficiently move that data to the cloud targets.
Yeah, and I think you just hit on something else that I think I'm going to toss over to Saurabh is I liked how we called it, like when I get into the petabyte range, there's also questions about the platform, right? So Saurabh, I'm going to let you take that one.
Absolutely, and I think I think Shrif put it really, really well. I think he covered most of it, but I think what I would add is, if you're looking for, and typically this is where we see customers sometimes face issues, right? When they adopt, well, traditionally people would put these backups on tapes, right? And I think if you want to recover a medical image, you would need that very critically right now. You want your RTO to be extremely low, your recovery time objective to be extremely low. It is very hard to achieve that with classical sort of storage in tapes. So when you switch to the cloud, you absolutely want to make sure that the right configuration happens for that data. And what I love about Rubrik Cloud Vault is Rubrik takes care of that configuration, making it secure, making it air gap, making it immutable, and then also optimizing for the right tier that you need for getting that low RTO performance. And that is super compelling for customers. Of course, customers can do that, as Shrif said. If you want to configure your own storage for residency or sovereignty reasons, you can always create your own storage account and configure it. And Rubrik's experience is super simple to be able to just provide the name of the storage account, the access keys, and you're done, right? And I think ensuring that that configuration is done in a very simple manner is, I think, the strength that Rubrik solution has. On the platform side, we absolutely make sure that the performance, the layout, the sharding of that data is done in such a way that the blob storage platform scales efficiently, as you go from petabyte scale to even exabyte scale. And I think Shrif talked about billions and billions of files. Typically, even if these images or files are small in size or larger in size, more high defined or high res in size, we will still be able to ensure that the layout of the data is kept in a certain way that we can do massively scalable parallel operations on that data when you read that data or write that data. And that allows the Rubrik platform to scale very easily across multiple types of unstructured data workloads as well, not just images, but if you're talking about video files, streaming files as well. I share the story with everyone. The World Cup, FIFA World Cup, was essentially streamed out of blob storage. At that scale, you need to have that ability to be able to get IOPS and low latency, a high throughput, and that's exactly what the platform offers. And so that's exactly why our customers in the healthcare space absolutely use this platform not only to store their data, but to also orchestrate business continuity processes, using that platform on blob storage.
Awesome. Again, so much passion here and so many good stories. And as we continue into this, because Shrif's going to show some things, there are some more questions that we're going to continue to get to. So keep typing those in. We're going to be addressing them. I want to keep going with the flow. So like there's this high level, how Rubrik architects the NAS Cloud Direct offering, Shrif, but go ahead and keep talking to us about the next level, clicking into that to tee us up for what you're actually going to show us live.
Absolutely. I've noticed there's a few questions asking about deployment time, because of course this is, so given this is a SaaS offering, it actually we require an SLA of about maybe 2 days to provision your own cloud tenant and make sure your service is up and running. Deploying the VM, adding systems, creating policies, and kicking off backups typically takes 40 minutes. And I have customers today that even do it themselves. Sometimes we just join a call.
I would
walk them
Yeah,
through
and
it.
I would plus one to that. I would just plus one to that because I have deployed this myself, and it literally took me less than a day to do the entire thing. That's the beauty of this, right? And that's the beauty of SaaS, essentially, as Shreve said. The experience is super simple. It's something, and I did not have to read any documentation.
Sure.
And even for somebody that has, that is more on the platform side, for me to use Rubrik, especially the solution was super simple. So 100% Shreve, fully agree with you.
Thanks, Saurabh. I know sometimes it's people think that this is too good to be true. I don't believe that, and for us, it's just seeing is believing. It's easy to deploy. It's very low overhead on your infrastructure. Just test it, and usually within a day or two, people know that okay, this actually works the way you guys are saying. And again, it goes back to the secret sauce of what really runs on this VM. Our scanners are extremely lightweight, so we've wrote our own NFS and SMB clients that can just do a single metadata call, capture as many objects from the NAS system. And as we scan the data, we're also indexing and moving at the same time. So there isn't a scanner job that blocks everything that we have to wait until it finishes, and then it gives it to the indexer and gives it to the mover. The indexing is strongly consistent, as in we will write the item in the index database if it actually gets committed to the target storage. The index database is hosted in the Rubrik Security Cloud, and that gives it extreme elasticity and scalability. So we will never run out of database entries or sizes because we're hosting a database on the VM. And when we say the VM is stateless, it is truly stateless. All operations happen in memory. That's what makes it really fast. Every job is multi-threaded, so we have this ability to dynamically scale up the number of connections or scale down depending on how busy a NAS system is. And again, we don't do lifecycle policies, so we don't land the data in one tier and move it on to the other, just incurring extra costs. We actually, if you wanted to write to Azure Archive, we take it directly to Azure Archive. If it's cool, we take it directly to cool, and so on.
Great. So you're going to talk to us about 3 really important things as we go through the demo,
right.
Which we just started to highlight. I want to let you highlight those and then get set up for that.
All right. So again, when it comes to NAS protection, we talk about how can efficiently I protect my NAS data. How can I make sure that my billions of files or petabytes of data is safely protected? And we definitely have the right answer for that. We can meet your SLAs. We can scale your own setup. We can scale it up and down depending on how big your environment is, whether you have 50 terabytes of data that you want to protect or 20 petabytes or more, billions of files or 100,000 of files. Again, we don't really care. We have the ability to be very efficient and scale out. Being resilient and ensuring that data is recoverable, we rely on protected cloud storage that is available and very reliable so that we can always do the restores. Our indexing is again hosted in the cloud, which gives it elasticity. We have the data search, and you'll see in the demo, is extremely fast. You can do global data search across your backup, so you can exactly find down to a file level what you exactly need to restore. And again, going back to being able to have the right data observability, being able to tell if there's been any ransomware attack that happened on your data, being able to see if there's any sensitive content that has been in your data, and just again, you have the right view on what's going on with your unstructured data.
Perfect. All right, Shreve, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you to share your screen so we can do a demo. And while we're doing that, you're getting it set. As you're talking through this, and you're gonna touch on some of these questions. So while you're getting set up, Saurabh, I'm gonna plant two things that maybe you can also speak to around the compliance needs for unstructured data. Somebody's asking, are there compliance requirements? And the answer is yes, right? But I want you to just go ahead and talk to us a little bit more about that. And then also, looking at the landscape, how do you get started with identifying where the greatest gaps are in data protection? And again, some of this Sharif is going to cover, but do you have like a couple sentences on each, Saurabh, that you want to tee up before we go into the demo?
Yeah, absolutely. I think compliance, applies differently to different industry, and I think we would encourage customers to sort of look at the compliance and trust center that Microsoft offers. Every piece of unstructured data, depending on the industry that you're in, will be subject to a different kind of compliance. I mean, HIPAA for let's say the healthcare unstructured data. You would essentially have SOC compliance and things like that for data which is related to security and things like that. So depending on the industry you're in, compliance absolutely applies to regulatory compliance applies to your unstructured data. But the interesting part is, as I talked about in the beginning, if you're looking at the Rubrik and the Microsoft platform together, you are covered because that is implemented on a platform that offers these compliance and trust controls in the most scalable and comprehensive level. There were also a couple of questions, I believe, on selection of access tiers and such. I let Sharif sort of do the demo because it's something really exciting, and then we'll come back to those additional questions as well.
Perfect. All right, Sharif, all yours.
All right. So this is the Rubrik Security Cloud interface. This is the main tool that you'll use to manage any of your Rubrik assets and products. Under clusters, you'll see any other Rubrik clusters, whether it's on-prem or on cloud that you have. And the NAS Cloud Direct VM would have its own tile here. You click on it and it takes you to the page or to the portal that manages your backup, your NAS backups. Adding a system is as simple as selecting the type of system that you want to protect, whether again being an Isilon, NetApp, Pure Flash Blade, or Cumulo. We have API integration with these systems, and what the API integration primarily gives us the ability to discover the IPs that are associated with particular volume shares or exports. It allows us to create a user and a role to make sure that we have the right permissions to back up those volumes, shares, and exports. And on top of that, over the API, we can create a snapshot and do a consistent backup of the data from those snapshots. Once the system is added, we discover all the shares and exports that are available under that system. So you can see here in my lab, I have Isilon clusters, NetApp, and Cumulos, and you can just easily scroll down. You can use the filter here to find a particular path or a particular system, or you can even filter out the ones that are not protected, for example, to create a protection policy and apply it to that data. Creating a policy is also a very simple procedure. You go to the policies page, you create a policy, you select the type as backup, you specify how often you want that job to run. It can be daily, it can be weekly, it can be monthly, or twice a day. You can select a destination, and that can be your Azure account. You select a bucket and you select a tier, and we write that to that tier directly. And there is also the concept of being able to write to multiple target storages from the same policy. So for example, you can specify a retention period to archive and say, I want to keep the data there for 3 years. But I also want to write a copy to Rubrik Cloud Vault and keep it there for 30 days. And what this would do, for example, Rubrik Cloud Vault has two different tiers. It can be backup, which is cool, and another an archive, which maps to Azure Archive. In this example here, this is a backup tier, so I can write it, retain it there for 30 days, and that will be my low retention, fast restore copy of that data. And also writing to Rubrik Cloud Vault gives you access to the ransomware investigation and sensitive data discovery features. Once a policy is created, you'll have your list of policies here, and they clearly explain what they do, where they write to, and how often they run. You go to the system, you select a share that you want to protect. And I'll select, for example, this is a share that's not protected. I'll select the policy that I want to protect, apply, and that's it. Your shares are protected. The backups will start to run based on the schedule that we set on the policy, or you can run the policy right away. Natasha, has there been any questions that I can answer?
There are. So let me double check.
Yeah.
No additional questions that relate to this in particular. We have some that. Hold on.
Okay. Beautiful. The next thing that I like to highlight is our Data Discover feature. And the Data Discover is a built-in tool. We scan the metadata of the files on your primary storage and provide time-based classification based on modification time and access time. I like to use this to show people how easy it is for us to scale tens of millions of files, hundreds of millions of files, and billions of files and petabytes of data. So in this example, in my NAS systems, I have about 3.9 petabytes and 58.2 million files. I can do things as easy as, say, I want to understand how many PowerPoint files I have in my environment, and this is across all my environments, and what's their access pattern. So I will say extension and specify as PPTX, and I can see that I have a total of 19.6 gigabytes of PowerPoints, and 5.6 of those have been modified in the past 7 days, 16.5 has been modified in the past 7 to 14 days, and over 14 gigabytes hasn't been modified in over 30 days. I can also edit those buckets. So those depends on how you classify data to be hot, warm, cool, and cold. And from there, I can dig deeper. Let's say I want to learn more about those PowerPoints that haven't been modified in over 30 days. So I will click on the blue icon here, and it gets highlighted, and I can see, okay, some of it is on this NetApp, some of it is on that other NetApp, and some are on the Isilon. So I'll just go see what's really going on in the Isilon, and I can keep digging deeper all the way to the file level. And what this shows me here is that all these department shares, they have PowerPoints that haven't been modified in over 30 days. So I can, for example, take action. I can create a live view and share it with them and let them either take action or tell me, do you need these files, or are they good to be deleted, for example, or maybe archived to a lower cost storage. And again, what I'd like to highlight here is how easy and fast it is to search. The other feature is I will show how the restores work. So again, because we are vendor agnostic, you can back up an NetApp share and restore it to a Cumulo or to an Isilon. As long as it's NFS to NFS or SMB to SMB, we don't really care. You can do a full restore from a particular point in time. Our backups are incremental forever, meaning that the first job that runs, we do take a full backup. And any subsequent runs, we just find the differences. And if the file has changed based on C time, M time, or file size, we back it up again. You can do a full restore. You can restore a particular directory or a particular file if you know where it is. You can also search here for a particular pattern, for example. So I'm looking for a file that's called has ABC, and I see that there's nothing here, but I can also search all my index database and see where these actually are. And I see, oh, there's that file. Sometimes users or people would ask for a file or a directory, but they don't remember exactly where it was shared. And using the search you can actually find is like, oh, actually this was on the Isilon, not on the NetApp, and so on.
This is awesome, Sharif. And going back to some of the things that we were talking about to tee up the problems, right? And I think about the evolution of our conversation here with having a strong platform and the flexibility and the thoughtfulness that has gone into Azure as the base, and then augmenting Rubrik as something that is a native integration, something that offers that continuation of the zero trust story, and then also follows these principles of make sure that you have the resiliency of the data. We've made it really easy to set things up. Make sure that you have the ability to actually observe what's happening with the data. Like, you've just shown some really awesome use cases that I can see, and I hope has inspired listeners here to think, like, whether I'm starting this and I have questions about how I get onto this journey with Microsoft and Rubrik together, or I'm optimizing for what I'm doing, I have flexibility to be able to do that with the two together. And then this last piece, this recovery, is then completing that story. Like, I'm not just ready, but if something bad happens, I know exactly how I'm going to close that loop. It's such a strong story and offering, and also, again, like the passion, right? I'm so excited to have you two together. And you guys get to live this on the daily and share this with a lot of customers and inspiring solutions for their stories and struggles with managing unstructured data. Do you I want to give you each 1 minute to leave us with some parting words. Do you have anything else that you would want to close out and leave folks with?
I think if you actually have NAS data today that you're not backing up and you're just relying on snap and replicate is not a backup. You can do proper cyber recovery from that data. Please come talk to us and we will find a good solution for you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And Saurabh?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I think Sharif closed it off brilliantly. I would just maybe address the two questions very quickly, which I was mentioning. What access tiers to use for applications related to minimal use? I would pick, depending on how long you want to retain those pieces of data and how quickly you want to sort of get that data, you can choose the offline archive tier, which is the lowest cost in the industry. Sort of put that data, retain it for, as many hundreds of years if you like. And you can, in fact, do that with Rubrik as well, as Sharif was showing with the demo. But if you want the data to be quickly accessible to you, you want to choose an online tier such as Cool. Cool tier gives you the access with minimal latency. It's an online tier, allows you to perform recovery operations very quickly. And I think there was a question around, security cameras and sort of, storing the data for security cameras. How do we do that? Well, I think the architecture that Sharif talked about and alluded to in the demo as well, you could be putting those images anywhere. You could be putting the repository on premises. You could be streaming that up to Azure Blob using, the varied protocols that Blob offers. Rubrik Security Cloud and NAS CD integrates with all those platforms. And that's the beauty of it all. As the data ends up there with the change log, the incrementals, the differentials that Sharif talked about, the Rubrik system is able to detect all of that changes and only back up what has changed. So you're not essentially storing all the frames. You're storing a compressed form of those frames and only what has changed across all of these things. So I just wanted to close those things out. And then just to add to, what Natasha was asking earlier, I would say trust the platform that gives you the most amount of security with regards to unstructured data. That is something which is paramount. Being able to orchestrate ransomware recoveries, discovering where the hotspots in your data are, what is sensitive, what is not sensitive, the more visibility you can create. Because at the end of the day, the asymmetry of attack is whoever has more insights about the data is able to protect the data better. And I think the attackers, they are trying to sneak in, but they don't have all the information we have. and you have with this system together. So that's what I would leave you with. Thank you so much for having all of us.
Yeah, thank you. So perfectly wrapped up by both of you. I appreciate the passion. Again, this customer centricity that our two organizations share shows through both with you as individuals and the offerings that we were able to talk about today. I thank everybody for listening in, and I'm going to pass it back to Jess because you have all been patiently waiting and following along to be here for the announcement of the winner. So Jess, thank you for having us. I'm going to pass it back to you.
Well, thank you, Natasha. And moderator to moderator, I have to say, you led us through a fascinating conversation today. A big thank you to Sharif and Sarb as well. I love the discussion, the demo, the rolling and interactive Q&A. Start to finish, this has just been a blast and an awesome way to wrap up our week. So I'm going to let you guys head out while we get to some prizes. But thank you again to all of you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having us.
All right, well, let's get, there we go. We are going to jump into some prizes, but before we do, a few things I want to remind you. One, we got so many questions today. You guys really, you understood the assignment. We wanted an interactive and fun conversation, and you were all up for it, and I love that. There were a lot of questions that we didn't get to, and I want you to know that all of those questions are going to get sent to the Rubrik team. So you will get answers back about all of those questions that you had coming in, even if we didn't get to discuss them in our live session today. The second thing I'm going to remind you about is that handouts tab. So again, this is a fantastic way to make sure that you have those follow-ups right there ready at your fingertips, because there's so much information that we just took in and it's just not all going to stay in your brain, right? So the handouts tab is a great way to make sure that you have access to that information that you're looking for. So again, that's the Zero Lab State of Data Security Report. You can sign up to attend a Forward World Tour event. That's a mouthful right there, in partnership with Microsoft, NAS Cloud Direct Solution Brief, and you can sign up to meet with Rubrik and Microsoft. These are all great options. Please do take advantage of those. And now, okay, I know what you're all waiting for, and Natasha teed it up for us nicely. We're going to get to that prize giveaway. So today's winner, who is here and present with us at the webinar, of a $250 Best Buy gift card, that's a lot of good stuff there for you, is Jason Gerd from North Carolina. Jason Gerd from North Carolina. There's your Friday Fun Day treat right there. Congratulations, Jason. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap up the webinar. And I do want to say I'm seeing some high fives rolling in from all of you out there, including Jennifer, who said that she loves this format. I agree. This is a really fun format. And it's a big, big high five to the speakers for being so willing to kind of come in and have that interactive conversation, but also to all of you. This is, you know, we can only have these types of conversations if you all are jumping in and participating and being a part of that. So I really want to make sure that we kick those thank yous to all of you as well. So while I'm here and thanking people, I'll make sure I say a big thank you to Rubrik and to Microsoft for making this webinar possible, especially to our incredible speakers who really took us through quite a journey today. We got to listen to them kind of go through some things and chat. We got to see a demo. We got to have some Q&A. It's just been start to finish a nonstop adventure. And as I said, that comes first and foremost from all of you out there as well for jumping on board with that. So thank you very much for that. I always say these webinars are such a great example of not just the interesting and informative, but that sort of collaborative and in-depth learning that we can all have together when we share information, when we ask questions together, and when we, you know, most importantly, engage in these types of conversations together. So I hope you've learned a ton. I hope you all had a lot of fun. I hope you're, you know, off to have wonderful and exciting Fridays and great weekends. I hope you can wrap it up soon and get started on some sunshine. And until I get to see you all again, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.